Hey guys, so I've been wanting to make this video for quite some time now, but I've been putting it off because quite frankly it's a bit of a boring subject to talk about, as if half the other subjects I talk about aren't boring to a lot of people. But this is particularly boring, but I kind of feel I'd like to cover it on this channel, so here we go. And that is talking about some of the components when building your computer. I'm sure many people who watch this channel have built their own PCs. And the idea to make this video was raised a month or so ago by Total Biscuit, actually. If you're not subscribed to him on YouTube, I highly recommend it. He's a fantastic YouTuber who does video game reviews. So if you're interested in video games, look up Total Biscuit because he's one of the best out there. But he mentioned in his computer build, in one of his Q&A videos, about the importance of having a good power supply in your machine. And that kind of made me remember of a story of my own around the power supply that's in my current machine that I use for work and editing videos and so forth on. So I had a power supply which I inherited from a friend for goodness knows how long ago. And that power supply was running fantastic. And I never really knew that much about power supplies. I'd always ever installed second-hand power supplies because there have always been plenty of them around. But when I decided to upgrade my computer, fit it with a new motherboard, processor, graphics card, etc., do a full overhaul, I realised that the power supply that I had in that machine wasn't going to cut it. It needed to be more than 650 watts. So I decided to go on down to PC World, which is a chain of computer stores we have here in Great Britain, and pick one up. And I picked one up, and they were quite expensive. I can't remember exactly how much I paid for this, or even what brand it was. But about a couple of months ago now, you may even remember if you've been subscribed to this channel long enough, there was one heck of a storm that lasted a good couple of days. A lightning strike from that storm threw out my power supply. Now that power supply had been going for a good number of years, but it was sort of, its life was cut a little bit short. So anyway, I was out of a computer. I only had my tablet to work on, and as you guys know, I make my living through doing stuff on the internet. So I need to get up and running as soon as possible. So I bought the first power supply that came up on eBay, and it was an Alpine power supply, and it cost £20. Now that might sound like a bit of a good bargain, but because I was in a bit of a panic to actually get up and running as soon as possible, I just bought it. Boom, 20 quid, fine. You know, sent off the money, got the merchandise back, and I installed it. And for about 3 months, it was running all right, except one random night it just blew up in a pretty big way, actually, pretty spectacular. There were sparks, there was heat, there was, you know, and not in a romantic kind of way either. So anyway, I decided to I took a bit of a warning from this, actually. So I did a bit of research as to the make, the origins of the parts, and I actually turned out that Alpine was not a very good power supply unit company. Their reviews on Amazon were dreadful. It was a complete mistake even buying it. In fact, the majority of people who left reviews on Amazon.co.uk actually said that the very same thing happened with their power supply, that it actually blew up. This was a common occurrence. In fact, according to the Amazon reviews, it occurred more often than it didn't. Now, obviously, the Amazon reviews are going to be biased. If your power supply did blow up, you'd be more inclined to leave a review warning other people of it. But it certainly was a very, very common occurrence. And it was then, really, that I actually appreciated. And, you know, it's a situation of better late than never, to be honest. I'm a little bit embarrassed that it actually took me this long to actually work it out, and whose advice I failed to heed, to be honest. The importance of having a high-quality power supply unit. So when I decided to, when I had to buy a replacement part, because I was not really comfortable putting another Alpine power supply unit in that computer, risking the other components, now that I sort of known how important a power supply unit was. I actually did a bit of research, and I went down to a chain in the UK called Maplins. Now, I by and large don't like endorsing chains. For a whole number of reasons. Some of them political, some of them, I just like the idea of supporting local independent retailers. But Maplins are actually very, very good at what they do. Their staff are actually very, very well trained. And I wanted to actually consult with someone on what kind of power supply unit I had. So I went up to Maplins on a weekend, I believe it was, and I had a chat with some of the staff there, and they showed me a selection of power supplies which they stocked and the pros and cons of each one. Now, having only spent 20 quid for the Alpine power supply, it was a bit of a shock that I had to actually fork up nearly 80 quid. Well, it was 80 quid retail price. It was actually on sale for 71.99. for this, which was a power supply which essentially, in theory, did the same job. But the difference in price between a good power supply and a bad power supply is pretty vast, really. Now, this comes with 3 years warranty, and it is a Corsair 750 CX750M. One of the things I noticed about the difference between the Corsair and the Alpine is the weight. The Corsair actually is just a lot heavier, the actual power supply unit itself. It also has a whole load more connections, and it works with SATA, ID, all that kind of stuff. But 80 quid is a big step up from 20 quid. And the reason is, to me at least now, very self-evident, that cheap power supply units are really just putting your other hardware at risk. The chaps at the store also mentioned that when you put in poor, low-quality power supply units, because of the nature of the current and because of how electricity works effectively, that's about my knowledge of it, it can actually wear down components faster. So there is no reason why you should budget on a power supply. It's one of those things that will last a long time. This is a 3-year warranty on it, which means that I can take it back to that store and I can get a new one within 3 years if it breaks down in 3 years. So a 3-year warranty that came with with purchase. I didn't have to pay anything extra for the warranty. It's a pretty good deal. I'm happy to pay 80 pounds, what's that, about $150 for a power supply unit that is guaranteed to work for the next 3 years. Which kind of leads me on to my second point. I bought the Alpine online and I bought the Corsair in a shop. So you would kind of expect to see some kind of difference. After all, shops have a much greater overheads. They have to pay staff, insurance, all that kind of stuff. But again, a shop is a place that you can actually go to return and actually consult people on, advice and things like that, which is something that in this particular instance, where I didn't actually know as much about power supply units as I thought I knew, turned out to be incredibly invaluable. As opposed to just going to a parts shop on eBay, which was where I got the Alpine unit, and I came up short. So the thing is with Corsair, this was a brand that was particularly recommended to me by the chaps at the store, and like I say, they are quite well trained. I mean, you can quiz them on just about anything, and they'll give you an answer there and then. If they don't, they will manage to research it and find the answer there for you. And it's Maplin's is the store. They're not actually too expensive. But the actual training that the staff have there, you got to give credit where credit's due on that one. So this is the Corsair CX750M, which is how many watts is it? 750. Clues in the title. So it's a little more than I need. I need something that's... Well, I say it's a little more than I need. I've got my motherboard says that with everything plugged in, 650 should be your minimum wattage, but 750 is a good safe zone to be in, especially if you want to upgrade in the future. So basically take heed from this advice. Never cheap out on the power supply. Total Biscuit said it, I say it, and I've got a bit of a grisly story behind me to back me up. So definitely, it's one thing that you should never really skimp on, even if you're going to go budget on, say, the graphics card or anything, or on the hard disk. I don't know. To be honest, budgeting on any part of computer hardware doesn't seem like a good idea. In fact, it almost seems better to get like a high quality brand that's just not as good, rather than get a better, a faster whatever, but of an unnamed brand. Case in point being maybe like hard disk drives, memory, that kind of thing, is that it's probably generally better to actually get something which is like a credible brand. And I guess in my mind, the cutoff point for that is whether or not the brand has like a Twitter account and whether or not that Twitter account is active. I know that seems like a bit of an arbitrary sort of requirement, and it's obviously not going to be my only requirement. But one thing I did notice is that Corsair do have like an active Twitter account where they talk about all their products and all that kind of thing. And with a lot of companies as well, is that Twitter's a great way to ask questions directly to the manufacturer. It's a good way to have a direct line, essentially. Not all companies are as good as each other at actually being attentive to Twitter queries, but some are better than others. But the fact that Corsair is the only power supply unit manufacturer which actually has a Twitter that I know of, at least Alpine didn't, and there were a few other brands that I looked into that didn't. To me, that says something. So, like I say, apologies for this not being the most exciting video, but if you're going to walk away with any kind of piece of advice, absolutely do not skimp on at least the power supply unit, because then other components are at risk. But also, warranty's a thing to bear in mind, and definitely the brand name. And I have not had a peep out of my Corsair, and it's recommended by well, anyone I know who uses them, which is, to be honest, it's only a fraction of people who even know who supplies their power supply unit. But much less problems. Most people who I've seen online have had problems with Alpine. So there you go. That's my bit of advice, and thanks very much for watching. If you have any advice you'd like to add to the discussion, I'll be more than welcome. I'll be more than happy to listen to you guys, and I'm sure you guys have a lot of insightful stories of your own on this one. So please leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. That's about it from me today. Until next time, I've been Chris Ware, and you've been awesome. Take care now.